Welcome to Shit Happens, where shit always happens. On a Sunday, I'm here on a Sunday till 11 a.m. You really have to be special to get me out of my bed at 11 a.m. on a Sunday. But then again, of course, I had to have my champagne because it's a Sunday, it's brunch. And since I'm here, where shit happens, with this incredible human being who I love and I adore all the amazing things she does as a mother, as a wife, as a friend, and a podcaster. And that's why I have my podcasting morning chat t-shirt on because that's how I met her. We belong in the Empowered Podcasting Clubhouse room together. And now she's here. She's finally here. Welcome, Jacquie. Hello,
Hi.
hello. Hello. I'm so happy to have you on Shit
I'm so
Happens.
happy to be here finally. I feel like
I,
it took us a while, but woo! Now
I
I'm
know. Finally, you were able to put me on your schedule.
yes. Yes, I got two little kids, so they take up a lot of time.
I love it. And I'm just glad you finally made it. And by the way, if Mark is gonna be around here or listen to this, it's called Shit Happens, okay? Not talking shit or whatever. But I had you all replay and I was like, how dare he when he has been on Shit Happens and how dare he? But I see he's just trying to pull me back into the room in the morning room, so he's doing everything he can. But how are you doing, baby? On this
I'm
beautiful Sunday.
I'm doing good. I'm just, I have babysitter out there with my kids because my husband has to go to work and babysitter, but she's also like my best friend too. So it's not just a babysitter. She comes and helps me out. So
We love that. We love best friends who take a bigger role than just best friends. Because sometimes, friends think that the friendship just is about you, but also if I have kids and I need help, and it extends to that. So we love that. We love that.
yeah.
So Jacquie, I want to talk to you about growing, learning, and advocating because that's something I caught from your bio. Because you say I'm growing and learning beside with my family as I go, and I love that because I'm all about growing and learning. That's why we're in this world, right? We are supposed to grow. We are supposed to learn. All these days, as I like to say it, I am enjoying unlearning shit I thought I knew, kinda.
Mm,
And you have a very amazing journey because you even your podcast came about because of the growing and learning. So let's dive into that. Let's talk about that. What made you decide like, fuck it, I really need to learn and grow? Because some people don't want to grow, right? Not everybody is into learning and growing. So
yeah. So basically, I felt like I didn't have a choice. It was not being here anymore or stopping myself and being like, okay, Jacquie, you're a mom, you're a wife. You want to be here. These are thoughts telling you that you don't want to. So why don't we dissect what's happening? And I actually had a mental breakdown and it was it was very eye-opening as you can imagine. Like, and I'm not talking about mental breakdown as in like just one episode crying. I couldn't speak. I couldn't be around my children. They were scaring me. Like literally I would jump when they came close to me. And as a mom, that's horrifying, right? And so I decided like I had to give up, right? I had to give it up and I needed something more. So I was doing all the things, right? I had all my tools because I was diagnosed depressed, anxious. I knew I had postpartum depression and anxiety, but I had all these tools that, therapists, social workers, you name it, life coaches, they all gave me, but they weren't working anymore. And so I went on medication, which can be for a little bit or can be forever. We don't know, but I'm okay with either. I'm just going with the flow. But basically, yes, I had to get to that breaking point where I was just like one foot in the grave. And I was like, you know what? This is a life to live. And it almost felt like I was pushed into this path because right after I had my mental breakdown, I had had a retreat that I had booked. It was a mother's retreat. And I'm like talking to my psychiatrist and my psychologist. I'm like, should I even go to this thing? Because like I can barely move. Like I can't get out of bed. And they're like, well, get yourself out of bed. And absolutely, because home is not your safe place and you need to be around support. And that's going to be the perfect support place for you. So I went to this retreat and it was just so inspiring. And I found myself falling into this essence of like spirituality. And it was almost like it took me. Like I didn't choose it, it chose me. It was like, okay, girl, like you've been in this spiral. This is how we're going to take you out. Right. And there were so many signs for me to get there. But through that, I started the healing process. Right. So I'm putting together things with I have an amazing psychologist. Like she's incredible. And so we're putting the pieces together. I started childhood, like inner child work. So like childhood meditations and stuff like that to take me back. Like, where did this start? Because it was a lot of stuff stacked onto each other why I had my mental breakdown. But the breaking point was really like kind of weird. So I wanted to get to the bottom of that. And for me, once I got on that medication and my mind stopped swirling so much, I was like, where do we go? Like, let's dig up everything. I never want this to happen to me again. Like, dig up everything. Teach me the tools. Like, I'm a really big, like, if it's going to be good for me, I'm going to put it in my daily regimen because why not? Like, we have one life to live. We have to be happy. And I was realizing, like, I was so far deep down into everything. I wasn't focusing on myself at all because I couldn't. The only thing I could focus on with myself at the time was surviving. And that is not okay. So I learned tools like, journaling. I mean, that seems so mindless, but sometimes we just have to be reminded, like, journal your stuff out. And I was going through all the childhood work, shadow work, which is basically like bringing everything up from your past and coming to terms with it inside of you, like healing yourself inside, forgiving situations that happen to you, understanding it from the other person's view, maybe not forgiving them, but like you don't forgive the situation, but you forgive them for yourself, if that makes sense. And it started to bring me a peace inside of me. And slowly I started like getting better and better. But at the retreat, I had been talking to other mothers on this app called Peanut. And they were always like, you should do a podcast. Like, you're always talking about these topics. And I was like, what do I have to do? I'm just another mom, like, what do I have to do a podcast about? True mental breakdown, trigger retreat. So I'm on the retreat and we're doing an activity. And it was write down like certain things that you feel like are your not so great traits about yourself. Well, I'm going through a mental breakdown, depression, anxiety, come right up. The woman running the circle was like, is anybody having trouble? I was like, me. I don't see how I could turn this around right now. Like, I was still in it. I was on medication, but it was the first couple days. So my brain was still in that like darkness, but it wasn't as strong of a current, if that makes sense. It wasn't as strong. So it was able to be penetrated at this point. So she's like, well, if you're having trouble, why don't you pick an oracle card? And at this point, I was like, not as spiritual as I am now. And I was like, whatever. I don't care if I have to like, go outside and do some weird dance and like get a message from the ocean at this point, whatever is going to help me. So I picked the card and it actually on the description of the card, it said, share your journey to help others heal. And that exploded in my head. And I was like, yes, I felt so alone going through all of this stuff, like so alone. And if I could create this space where people can talk about these deep things in parenting and one person hears it and thinks, wow, like I'm not the only one. This is normal, and I put in quotations normal because like it is normal for a lot of this stuff to happen. It doesn't mean that you should let it continue to happen. You need to heal yourself, but it's an ever long process, right? And that's what a lot of people don't get. You're healing every day. So you heal to a big degree and then these things keep popping up. But yeah, my podcast, I just wanted to be a voice that people can trust. I wanted it to feel like a safe place where my guests can feel like they can share their journey and another parent is going to hear it, or a spouse, and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, that's what my wife was going through, or that's what my husband was going through. And they can just understand and feel heard and feel seen, because I did not feel seen. And once I spoke out about it and I made my first couple episodes, so many mothers started reaching out. It was overwhelming. And I was just like blown away, not only for them to feel safe enough to reach out to me to be like, oh my gosh, I've gone through the same things. Like, I hear you. But for me, like, I felt validated, and I needed to feel that feeling. So even my podcast has been a big healing journey for me, just listening. And it's so inspirational to the stuff that people go through and they get through to the other side. And it's like, how do they do it? And they share their stories and it's gorgeous. But yeah, healing is for forever. And that it's not to be discouraging. Like I said, you do the big stuff at the beginning, but you're not off the hook. It's still going to creep its way back in every now and then, and being a parent, when you have trauma as a child, it like smacks you in the face. Like, it literally one day, you're in a rage and you're like, why? Like, my kids are just being kids. Why do I feel this way? Well, it's probably because of something you've been conditioned to. So this goes beyond parenting too, right? If you're in a group setting and people are making you're feeling rage and you're like, this isn't even happening to me. Why am I feeling this? Well, there's probably something that is triggering inside of your head. And if you get down, I always say, keep asking yourself why. This person's making me upset. Why? Okay, you get the reason there. Maybe because they're speaking to me in a tone that I feel is disrespectful. Well, why? Why is that making you feel disrespected? Then you start getting answers when you dive deeper, right? Maybe as a kid, you had a sibling that was super disrespectful, or your parents never listened. And yeah, the whys helped me a lot. That was very long-winded, but I hope I answered.
Oh no, you did, and I love. And there's so many things you touched in where I wanna go on, but it's so true. I think the reason why some people don't go to therapy or don't go to the healing, because you have to really dig deeper. There's always a very reason. Sometimes we think like, oh, it's just because of this, but no. When you really ask that why and you dig deeper, you realize it's a trigger from a certain age or a certain way. That's why whenever that shit happens, you feel some type of way. But nobody wants to dig deep, right? People don't wanna come out from their demons. But that's what I love about healing, right? I've been on this journey of healing myself because I want to be a better me, right? I want to, and I feel like because I'm single, right? If I'm talking about wanting a partner who's healed, who knows themselves, they should be expecting that from me as well. Like, they're also praying for the same person. So I need to be my best version for me, but for that person, even for my future kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I got into this journey of feeling, but I am constantly learning, and there's some things I have to call myself out. Like, nah, that's on you, girl. Like, that's all you. Like, we are constantly putting blames on people, but when we dig down, some shit is our own fault.
Yeah, it's shocking how much. And most of the time when you think about it, it's just getting past that ego, right? It's getting past your ego. Because when you're high in your ego, it's like, yeah, screw that person. Like, why would they do that to me? Why would they do this? But then when you think about it, it's like, no, the problem starts in you. Like, I truly believe that everything that, like, people are a reflection of who you are, right? So what you're hearing in them is a reflection of what's already inside of you. What you take to your heart is a reflection of what's inside of you. What brings up emotions when you're talking to people is a reflection of something happening inside of you. So why? If it's bothersome, why? Why is that happening in me? And that doesn't mean let everybody walk all over you. But when you start to realize these things in yourself, you start putting up boundaries and you start understanding yourself more. And then you're not in these situations, or at least your heart doesn't get into these situations. You don't get dragged down by other people. I recently started reading a lot about the chakras, and they were talking about energy centers. And I truly believe this with all of my heart. there was a sentence in there, and it was like, nobody can enter your energy without your permission. And that statement rang like really like hard truth in my head, right? So like anytime you're feeling bad about something somebody said, like, you're letting this in. Why are you letting this in? Do you need to learn a lesson? Or is this just, maybe protecting your energy more, those boundaries like I was talking about? And trust me, like, I'm learning, I'm learning as I go, and I'm sharing it with my family, with my husband, with my kids. And it has been truly eye-opening to me just this last, because I've been on many journeys, right? Like, I've done this before. This isn't the first time. This is the first time I was almost hospitalized, but this isn't the first time I was crashing. This isn't the first time I was in a hole. And when you are getting older, as you evolve, sometimes your methods of helping yourself have to evolve as well. And I was just at that point where I needed to know more. I needed to know more about me, and I still discover myself every day. And I think that's the beauty of healing and growing and understanding, that is you realize new things about yourself and the people you love every day.
So true. That part, discovering new things about you. Also, I think because we're so conditioned to want this type of life, right? That type of life that was considered normal, right? But surprisingly, whatever fucking life you want to live can be your normal. You don't. There's
Yeah.
no normal lifestyle or anything. Whatever you want, just like our relationship. However you want to deal with your relationship, your marriage, what feels normal to you, that's what's normal. There's no. But then as I'm healing and growing in this, the version of me that I am loving, I'm realizing that the type of life I want, like the type of life I thought I wanted, isn't it. Like, no, I don't want that life. That's not how I want this. I want this. And the more I keep on learning, the more I keep on saying, screw that. You can do this. Like, you can be this. Look at who I am. Look at the shit I'm doing. I never thought I'd be a podcaster. I never thought I'd be presenting on stages. But look at me surprising myself because I decided to work, to learn and grow and be the person. And there's something that you said which I want to say. You mentioned that when the moms in the peanut group say in the peanut app, or like, you should start a podcast, and you're like, me, I'm just a mom. Oh my God, do you know how much I hate when I hear mothers say that? Because whether you're a stay-at-home mom or you're doing other stuff, you're not just a mom. Actually, a mom in itself, that's a lot of work. That's like running a business. Like, your kids are like literally running your business. That's why a lot of moms can be entrepreneurs, are the best entrepreneurs, because you have to condition your kids. You have to put restriction. You have to do the schedule. You have to learn to say no and stick to it, because when your baby is giving you that space and you really want to just be like, okay, I'll give you the soda, but deep down you gotta say no because that's too much sugar and it's late right now. So all are qualities that people have who will run businesses. So you are not just a mom, you are more than just a mom. And and i and i that's why I love how you're out here advocating and preaching and sharing, because a lot of moms do feel that, like, I'm just a mom, I'm just, like, no, and that's not your identity. I think some moms also take that as their identity. I'm a mom, even wife, right? I'm a wife, I'm just a wife. Like, no, that's just part of you. It's not the entire you. There's a lot more of you that the world needs than just being a mom. So I'm glad that got out of you and you just went in. And I think, again, it comes back to, because you decided to work on yourself and figure shit out, and that's why you were able to do this. But it's amazing. Like, when I hear your story, my sister came on my podcast a few years back to talk about her postpartum journey, and she had a COVID baby. And my sister is bougie as fuck. She does not like accepting, like, she's troubled. She doesn't put her business out there. So for
Yeah.
her to come, and she was literally telling me, Paula, there was a time where I didn't even like my child. I didn't want to hold my child. And I felt so bad because I couldn't explain what was going on with me. But I didn't know that was I was dealing with postpartum. So I'm grateful I have a husband who was very understanding and figured out how to assist me. But it took a lot, and that's why I'm here to talk about it. And after that episode, she ended up creating like a mom's group in Tanzania. She shared it and they started talking. And I remember a few guys, my cousins actually, cousin brothers, they listened to that episode and they came to me, they're like, thank you so much for having this conversation. Because me as a guy, I saw my sister going through that, but I just thought she was lazy. Or I started blaming her, like, you're lazy. Like, how could you not want to hold your child? But I didn't know that they deal with it. I'm like, yeah, you all think birth is just all this. Like, we just talk about the good side of birth when the baby comes, but we need to talk about the other stuff that we deal with. You're dealing with a child, while also you have to take care of your mental state. And who knows when you go through that process while giving birth, how your mental state switches? Because only you know. Because we are not there, and everybody's experience is different. So we have to learn through these stories. And I know it can be hard, even me when I came out with my depression, it's hard to come out and tell people what you're suffering with, right? Especially in a world where it's very judgmental, and the social media world where people will be like, oh, she came here to the internet to cry. Oh, she wants to feel sorry. Look at her, the victim. How many people have had kids and they've been all right? Like, come on, all those things. But there's more to it. But as soon as you share, those people will come, because finally one brave person came out to say, because they also want to share their story, they want to talk to somebody, but they don't have that braveness, right? You are here giving them the courage, like, if I can say it and I'm sharing, like, I struggle, I have days which are like this, you're giving them strength to go out and do the same. So that's amazing. Like, I just want to say you are doing an incredible job out there.
My earbuds just died. Are you hearing echoing?
No, I can hear fine.
Okay, cool. As long as
Yeah.
that's okay. I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
go without them because I charge that. They've been, who knows? They're
Listen, shit happens, and if you're a podcaster, technical difficulties are part of our daily life. Like,
yeah.
it happens.
They've been on their own journey. One, talking about being a mother. One day, I was looking for my ear pod and I was like, where'd it go? Like, and I'm drinking my coffee and all of a sudden something hits me in my mouth. And I was like, and I look in there and my little girl had taken my ear pod and dropped it in my coffee. And you know what? It still worked after that. I was shocked because I don't know how long it was sitting in that coffee, but
I'm not surprised. I've washed mine in a washing machine, like they were in the pants, and somehow they still work. And I was like, okay, cool.
yeah, but going back to the like postpartum stuff, if you want me to dive into the way I was feeling, like
Yes, please.
there were two completely different journeys, but kind of the same. So I have two kids, and my husband works away a lot. He's either here, or he's gone. He works on set. So he's like, for instance, this week, like tonight, he has a shoot, and then tomorrow he has to go do something, and then tomorrow night he's on something, and he's like flip-flopping. So I don't know when I'm going to see him. So long story short, my whole first pregnancy, he was kind of away. He was I think he did a shoot in Mexico where he was gone for 2 months, and then he worked nights. So he would be sleeping all day. And I worked until I was like 28 weeks pregnant, and then they put me on limited movement, which is like bed rest. They just don't call it bed rest anymore. It's called limited movement. So I couldn't work on my feet anymore. I was a hairstylist at the time, and he was gone all night, and I was freaking lonely, and I was in Los Angeles. My friends really didn't have kids. The ones that did have kids were busy with their kids. So I was just sitting in there all alone. The good thing that came out of that was I watched all of the Marvel movies in order. But the feeling started then. And I'm realizing that
Because
now.
you're alone and you're in your thoughts.
Mm-hmm. And, I remember towards the end of that pregnancy, I was in and out of the hospital because I was in so much pain. I was going to pick up something for the baby at Target before he came. And I got to the back of Target and I just started to cry because I was in so much pain. I was like, do I call an employee? Like, I don't think I could walk to the front of the store because he literally was sitting down so far. It was like, oh my God, it was so horrible. And after I had him, I wasn't as educated on postpartum depression. So there's baby blues and postpartum depression. Baby blues are normally like 2 weeks to a month long, and then they go away. And that's, if you still are feeling depressed, that's when like postpartum can set in. And, I remember having my husband's birthday party. His birthday's 2 weeks after my son's. And we invited all these people over. And then all of a sudden they came and I just sat in my baby's room and cried. And people were not being nice about it. They're like, well, why did we come here if we can't even hold the baby? Why did we do this if we can't even come in here? And I also remember having a little like Facebook moment after and saying something on there. And somebody had messaged my husband and was like, what is she doing? She's embarrassing the family. And I'm like, obviously I was going through something, right? So that journey felt very normal depression, loneliness, all of those things, right? And it kept going. So I was about 18 months postpartum. I pumped with my son, like I pumped breast milk with him until he was 15 months old. So 3 months, and every time, for any moms out there, anytime you drop a feed or a pump, your hormones skyrocket. So that's just a warning to think about and to be aware of, because
I'm learning that way when I start my journey. I can be like, I remember Jackie mentioned this.
Yeah, be aware of it. So if you're feeling like all the things, you're like, okay, this is hormonal. You can at least name it. So I didn't know that. And I was dropping pumps and I was getting depressed. And then COVID happened and I was in the house and I started drinking. And then finally I just couldn't. It would make me so anxious to drink. And I just had to stop doing that. Even like to this day, I think it's going to be like 2 or 3 years since I've had a drink, just because it made me anxious. But going forward with that, I got pregnant again when my son was about 18 months old. And it carried. A lot of women don't know this. They say, 4 years, this amount of time. It's actually 7 years for your body and your hormones to completely regulate back to normal. 7 years. And there's a lot.
So the fact that you got pregnant just after, while also still dealing with it, transferred to the
girl. Because so what happened with that was it was COVID. We had my son. We were thinking about, preschools and stuff. And we had a thought. We were like, we're in Los Angeles at the time. And we're like, well, we can get a house. We can take him to preschool. But that's all we're going to be able to afford. Houses then, and this is now risen. But then just for like your small 2-bedroom house, it was like $700,000. And we were like, okay, we can make it work. But there goes the rest of our life. So where else can we move, right? My husband's in the entertainment industry, Atlanta. So we're like, cool, we'll move to Atlanta. But when we made that choice, we found out my mom had cancer for the second time. So I wasn't working, and because I was pregnant and we were moving anyways, and I was just like, you know what? I'm going to have a pit stop in Pittsburgh. We can put all of our stuff in storage. If you need to fly back to LA for work, you can do that, or you can start working in Atlanta and fly to Atlanta. We had a friend that lived here at the time, so we were like, he had a place to stay. So I'm pregnant and I'm taking care of my mom, taking her to chemo treatments with a 2-year-old, almost 2-year-old. He turned 2 a couple months before I gave birth. And it was just like, that's when the rage started in me. And it was bad. Like, it was really bad. I would have these moments of just loss of control. And even with my mom was sick, but she could help watch my son and let me go nap because I was pregnant or whatever. He also went through a phase of not wanting to sleep at night, and he would get up in the middle of the night screaming. So I'm pregnant, I'm trying to sleep. He would finally get to bed he would like go to bed at 10, but then wake up at like 2 a.m. And then Harlow, my daughter, would start to kick me between 3 and 4. So I like wasn't really getting sleep.
It's like they said we're teaming up on mom. Like we're gonna be team while you're still in there and give it to mom.
And he was away most of the time because he was going back to Los Angeles to work. We had to make money, and we had a savings account. We ended up blowing through that because when we moved here, he had no work. So I had my daughter, and we moved down to Atlanta, and unbeknownst to us, Atlanta likes to close everything pretty much in the entertainment industry. You'll get a job here and there if you're on something big, but around November. Okay. And we moved here at the beginning of November, and he didn't work for months. And so everything we had worked hard to save for was gone. And he started to get depressed, and I started to get depressed, and then work picked up for him. So he would go and work, and my mom would come down sometimes because at this point she had already been through her chemo and everything, and she was past all of her treatment. And, I started to get really dark at this point, like having the suicidal ideation. Like it would be better for me not to be here. Like I'm such a burden. I'm so mean. I'm so crabby. Like my kids will get over it. My husband's a good guy. He'll find a woman that treats the kids okay. I'm literally like convincing myself, right?
It's the fact that you're even thinking about your husband finding a good woman, right?
And that's what I was thinking of, because I was like, my kids need a mom, but he's a good man. He'll find somebody, right? That's how deep it got. I'm glad you're laughing. Thank you, because that takes the intensity off of it so much.
And I tell people I'm so bad at like I laugh, but then I also cry. But then when it's funny, like, and this is a bad thing when people are sharing the very, but for some reason I always find something in it where kind of just to, because I can easily start crying like a bitch right now.
Yeah. So I was thinking about all that, and then I started, and I don't know how much can I say on here without I don't want to get like you booted from any live platforms.
Oh, no, you're fine. This is shit happens. If they boot us, then they don't deserve us.
Okay. Because
look at Alex is here. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Alex.
And by the way, for everybody who's watching, Alex is the first guy, apart from Jackie's husband, to be on Jackie's show. So,
yep, he was my dad. He was the dad on there. Thank you for holding it down, Alex. But yeah, so I started having these horrible thoughts, and then what happened was, what I know now was a reaction for my PTSD. I would get so overstimulated, I wouldn't even think about it. I started to hurt myself, like bad. Like I remember there was a time where I had fingerprint bruises on my face from just digging into myself. And there would be moments where my son would be crying and I wouldn't know what to do. And just out of a reaction, I would just I put my head into his little kid. You know how you get the side things? I can't think of them right now, but the side bars for the bed. I put my head so hard into it that I had a bruise across my forehead. I would, hit myself. I would all the things. And now I know that was a reaction from PTSD, right? That's control. I was overstimulated. It was loss of control. The way a lot of people that do self-harm, that is bringing back control to themselves, right? And it wasn't like I was thinking about it. I wasn't thinking, oh, I should hurt myself in this moment. It was boom, boom. Something would happen, I would do it. It was nothing in between. And also with PTSD, a lot of times when you're stressed and you don't have that space to hold for yourself, your thoughts, this is a scientific proven thing. It goes straight from the whatever's entering your head to fight or flight, which was my fight or flight, right? And one night, the kids were crying. My son had been sick. That triggered me so much for some reason. He had been sick before, he was sick, he was throwing up. For some reason, this time I lost my shit and I was like afraid of him. It was bad. My husband went to work and the kids were in the bathtub, and my kid was fine at this point. You know, he's perfectly fine, not sick anymore, nothing. And it was a quick thing. Like, and he had been sick before, so that time I wasn't sure why it was bothering me so much, but it got dark and I called my husband screaming and crying. How could you do this to me? You left me here. I'm in a horrible place. I don't want to be here. I put my daughter in her walker on the carpet so she couldn't move. And my son was old enough that he was in the bath, but the water was just going. He wasn't actually in the bathtub. And I was in my kitchen just crying. And I couldn't even lift myself off the floor to walk back to the bathroom. I literally crawled and I just prayed and prayed, please get me through this until I can put them to bed. Please get me through this until I could put them to bed. And some, by source, God, whatever anybody believes in grace, I was able to do that night. And I talked to my therapist about it. I totally shut down. I couldn't talk. I wasn't eating. I lost like 6 pounds in a week. I was terrified of my children. And that's when I got diagnosed with an actual mental breakdown. And my psychologist told me, Jackie, you either go to the ER, you go to inpatient, or you find a psychiatrist like tomorrow. Like, this needs to happen soon, because we can no longer depend on what we're doing with the tools that are not pharmaceutical drugs, basically. So, and
I think that was a way of saying you survived this one. I'm not sure the second one you'll survive.
Yeah. And there wasn't much survival left at that point. I was gone. Like, my husband would talk to me and it was like talking to somebody that's in a coma. Like, I literally speak. Yeah. My brain had just literally exploded. Like, anything, I just sat in bed. Like, I could not do anything but sit in bed. And here's my husband that has to work. And he's like, what do I do? Like, I need to work. We just went through this financial hardship. I have to get out there. Like, I can't just. So my mom, she had been through a mental breakdown. And I pieced together pieces and why everything happened. And I can go into that if you want me to. But she came down and I went to my retreat, and then she came down because my psychologist was like, I don't think you should be alone with your children right now. And it wasn't that I was going to hurt my children. She was afraid for me because of my mental stability. I couldn't handle doing it on my own. So my mom came out for a couple weeks and she helped through the job that my husband was on. And then after a couple weeks, I started to feel a little better. I remember the first day he went to work and I didn't have help. It was such a huge hurdle for me. I was so scared. Even with all the help I had, I was so scared. And when I made it through that, I was like, okay, this is okay. Like, I'm going to be able to do this. And then as time went on and I started doing all of my healing things, I meditate, I journal, I'm constantly healing myself. Anything that pops up, I'm like almost, what is it called? Like, I'm obsessive. I'm like, oh no, okay, wow, that was a feeling. Where'd it come from? Why did I feel this way? Like, almost analyzing everything, right? Because at this point now, I'm like, nope, this isn't going to happen again. Like, I'm not going to go through that again.
You're aware. You're much more aware, and right when it happens. Me too. And even with my depression, because I've already found tools that help me work it. So when I see myself going into that dark hole, because again, it just comes to my mind, I get overthinking and worrying. I worry, and then the more I worry, the more I overthink, and I start creating problems that are not even there because I'm too much worrying, which brought me to too much. And I'm like, no, we're not going to do this today. Why are we even doing this? Remember, we said we're going to do this. So what I've realized is because I end up being in my room where it's a little bit darkened, so I just go out and take a walk around or just look at beautiful, like my building, or just in my balcony for the fresh air, just to feel like, breathe. Okay. Don't worry. We have been broke before. We have survived. Just make better choices, but let's figure it out instead of worrying. It does come to the self-awareness becomes so brighter once you start working on yourself. But there's something you mentioned while you were sharing your story, like when you wrote something on Facebook and they called your husband and said, why is she embarrassing the family? I hate shit like that, because there's a for somebody to actually go to social media and cry, whether it's cry or vent or shout, that means literally at that moment they don't have anybody to talk. And I'm not saying that we don't have people in our lives, but sometimes when you're going through that, there's also this guilt of, I don't want to disturb I know my husband is working right now. I don't want to call him and disturb him or worry him. I know I have my best friend who will answer, but if she's also at work, like, those. So you're like, my only option is social media. That way, whoever sees it and decides to help or support me in some way, even though that's not what we are hoping for, but that's the reality. So I hate when people come and say, why did you do that on social media, embarrassing the family? Like, are you seriously worried about the family being embarrassed compared to what I just shared right now? Like,
Yeah.
make it make sense. Like, are you not reading what I shared? Clearly, it means I'm not okay. So, and that's the reason why people don't speak up. People don't share. People don't want to, because of these stupid fairness. So to all those people out there, if you see your friends crying on social media, venting or whatever, instead of thinking about being embarrassed or anything, maybe reach out and find out how you can help, how you can support. It's ridiculous. But I also wanted to touch on something before we jump off. Um, you have two incredible kids who have development issues. I wanted us to kind of talk a little bit about that, because it kind of also ties down to mental health. Like, you have your own mental struggles that you're dealing with, and then just having kids who don't even have any issues, it's already hard enough, right? And then to add them also being young and they have these development issues, which you are learning how to process with them and they're learning how to process it with them. I want us to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my son has not been diagnosed with anything, but he's in occupational therapy, he's in speech, and they want to put him in play therapy, which he's been doing better now. But what kind of happened with him, I think, was all the big transitions when he was young, and then COVID, right? Because he wasn't around kids. I think he was around like 8 months old when lockdown happened. No, not even. He was like 6 months old when lockdown happened. So like when you should start taking your kids to like Mommy and Me and stuff like that.
Play dates.
Yeah.
So he missed out on that important part of actually being around. And any, I feel like any child who was born during COVID time, like, oh my God, because we as parents, as big people, we hated being stuck indoors and not having.
Yeah.
So I can imagine for a child not.
Yeah, it was, and he's doing good, right? He's doing good, but he is also like really young for his like class, right? So we're holding him back another year, so he's the oldest and not the youngest. He's a July baby. So I was talking with his teachers and they all agreed, like, yes, we should keep him so he's the oldest in his class and not the baby of his class. My daughter, actually, though, at 6 months old, was diagnosed with a very rare disorder, and it is called Sifram-Hits-Weiss. At the time, she was one of 34 people in the world diagnosed with this. The world.
That, first of all, the name itself was like,
Yeah. So basically there is a disorder called CHD4 disorder. Okay. And this is like a little part of that disorder. And, it's just the way kids are. So like basically with the disorder, you could have all the delays, developmental delay, speech delay. The oldest person they know with active symptoms to this disorder is in his 20s. And he stopped, what's the word I'm looking for? His brain kind of stopped developing and maturing in his like preteens, right? So he's 20 something and I guess still acts, as like a 10, 11, 12-year-old would. So there's not much known about it. They do research. I'm actually interviewing one of the women that is doing the research on my podcast at the end of the month. And it's a small community. It's a Facebook community. But yeah, so at 6 months old, we're told this about our daughter. And you see this long sheet. And with every disorder, every gene thing, it could be nothing or it could be all of these things, right? Luckily, her disorder, from what they know, nothing with life expectancy, and also nothing that will like get worse, basically. So what they're born like is basically where they'll stay. But she's 2 now, so she's still developing. So we don't know any of this, right? A little bit ago, I actually asked her OT and PT, occupational therapist and physical therapist, where she was at. And they said she's about 6 to 12 months delayed in speech and with the way she's moving. And that was something to take in because she's getting older and I'm becoming more aware of all of these things. And we're kind of seeing where she's going to fit in. And it's so scary to hear this stuff about your kid. And also the thought, you never think when you're having a child that anything like this will happen, right? You have a fear that it might happen, but you actually are like, nah, probably not. And then to get smacked with a rare disorder that they are still studying. So I've actually she was going to be a part of the study, but by the time the genetics doctors here got in the paperwork, it was too late and it was full, which is fine. But then the doctors here were like, oh, we think she should get this blood work and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, what is it going to tell us? And they're like, more like, it'll tell us, meaning the doctors. And at that moment, I felt like they were trying to make my daughter a lab rat, which...
Yeah, because I want something that's going to help me,
Yes.
help my child. But if it's helping you, no.
Yeah. So and you know what? If it was research and it would help them, that's fine. But they also wanted us to come out of pocket for this stuff. And I was like,
no.
Nah. So
like all the benefits to you guys, I'm paying you just for you to get your research, but you're not helping my child.
Yeah.
Make it make sense.
I smiled because she heard me talking about her and she just ran in here. And then and scooped her up and took her away.
I mean, this is shit happens. Anything can happen, you know? Like, hi, but yes, so go ahead.
Yeah, it's something to just like digest all the time, right? And we still don't know. Is she going to be able to live on her own? We don't know. Is she going to be able to grow up and, get married if she wants, have a job? We don't know yet, and it's looking like she will be okay. She's 6 months to 12 months behind. But again, not enough kids are old enough yet with symptoms, right? So a lot of parents have the gene and they just didn't have any symptoms of it their whole life. You can be a carrier and not even know it. And that's what they're figuring out now, that a lot of parents were carrying it. We did not. So hers is called like de novo, I believe is what they call it, which is it came up new in her. And it's still shocking to this day. But I have to tell you, with kids that I'm pretty sure my son has a sensory disorder. He hasn't been diagnosed with anything but loud noises, certain textures. He has trouble eating food. Like it screams sensory disorder. I'm not a doctor to diagnose it, but I know that's what's going on with him. As a mother, you kind of start to see and understand, and through talking to other mothers with the same stuff. And it's just putting all the pieces together and trying to understand where my kids need to be met, because they're not the typical kids. But what I was saying before, there is something special about these children that have these things, like kids that don't speak for a certain amount of time. What happens when something's taken away? Your other sensories, what are they called?
You get creative. Kids become very creative because they have to figure out ways to connect, because they also feel it like something is kind of different from me and the other kid, and
Yeah.
they find other ways. They become very creative and very aware as well. They become very aware in this, and we need more aware kids in this world,
And
like.
emotional
Yes.
awareness, because if you can't speak, that's what I was trying to say, like your senses, right? Like people that are blind, sometimes their ears get super sharp, they can hear things better, right? Because you're taking away one of those senses.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you go to a restaurant and they have the dark meals, that you can't see
Mm-hmm.
what you're eating and you're just eating it, like you
The
take away
two.
sense and other things get stronger, right? So a lot of these kids coming up with all of these like speech delays and stuff like that, I truly feel, and I've even read up on it, is their emotional awareness is like on fire. Their intelligence is so great because they just soak everything in. They don't speak about it as much as just like understanding and learning and listening. So it's just been super interesting. And my kids are so great. Like I
They
had my
are, of
troubles with
course.
my son through a lot of his, and also I was going through my stuff too. So was it him feeling me? Probably. And I felt some guilt around that. But you know what? I'm telling you now, as a 4-year-old, he is the most kind, sweet little boy that you are going to meet. And he is so intelligent when it comes to emotions, and he feels other people's emotions. Like he's the kid that if his sister's crying, he tears up.
You say he's a July baby, right?
Mhm.
Is he Cancer?
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course, of course. Like we are special beings. I'm just saying, like, we. But also to add on that, you are right. I've met autism kids. I've been around them, and the way they just feel and connect with you, and the shit that they do, you just left in awe. Like, oh my god, like. So that's why I hate when we focus more on labels and titles when all these kids have so much special to offer despite what they're going. And I know your daughter is gonna be fine. You know why? Because she has a badass mom who is very aware, who has done the job to heal herself, and now has the capabilities of being very aware on what the kids are going through. Like, look, all the stuff you're already doing just to make sure that your kids are comfortable and are getting everything that they need to get despite what they're diagnosed with. So of course she's gonna be amazing. She's gonna, if she wants to get married, she will fucking get married. If she wants to have kids, she will fucking, whatever she wants to be, she will be, because she has a badass mom and a cool ass dad. I haven't met your husband yet, but I'm pretty sure he's fucking cool. So I already know they're gonna be alright. Like I'm not worried for 1 second, because
Thank
the
you.
way you keep pioneering and keep advocating and keep living in your truth, these babies are lucky to have you. So I am glad you did that. And that's the thing, when you do the work, it's not just for you, it's for your loved ones around you as well. Because your kids are seeing you in your best self, and they're gonna want to be like mommy. Like, look how mommy shines. I want to shine like mommy. So whatever mommy is doing, I'm gonna do as well. Ma, we are coming to the end, and Jackie, I can talk to you and listen to all this amazing, because you're always just sharing your story. I learn a lot about healing myself. So don't stop sharing. Don't stop being the light that you are, and keep breaking barriers and breaking down them doors, because the world needs you, Jackie. But before we go, let the people know about your podcast and where they can find it and how they can connect with you. If you have anything amazing coming out that you want to promo, this is your chance. And also a little advice for those people out there who are scared about unlearning themselves and doing the work to grow and learn and unlearn and advocate for themselves and their needs.
Okay, so I'm the Mama Jac across the board. The Mama Jac, TheMamaJac. No K, JAC. You can find me on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple. And I'm also going to be starting another podcast in the summer called The Mama Jac's Rise and Shine. So that'll be more of a spiritual podcast. The Mama Jac podcast, just the Mama Jac. That's real raw parenting. That's where you're going to hear a lot of stories from a lot of parents that have felt lost. They found their way again, how they deal with, kids with disabilities or just themselves with a disability. Like I call it's the Truth, Vulnerable, Brave podcast. These are people that I want them to share their stories. So other people out there that are afraid to talk about these subjects or haven't brought it up, or maybe even aren't even realizing it's happening to them, it can spark something in them and inspire them that they can do it just like these other people can. Like I did, like I pulled myself out of the hole. And something I want to leave you with as far as the whole being afraid to dive in. The light at the other end after you dive in is so brilliant and so beautiful and so gorgeous. And the you after diving in, I'm not going to lie, it's not going to be easy. You have to dig stuff up from the past that you wanted to bury. This is everything that's been buried. Some stuff you don't even realize was buried, but it's buried and it'll come up and you'll have to work through it. But when you get through that, there's no feeling like that. It is power. It is, your self-doubt starts to just go away. Your anxiety, your depression, you just know, you feel yourself as a powerhouse and you understand that. And through doing that hard work, you're giving yourself freedom. Honestly, there's freedom on the other side. You don't have to be locked in to those places. You don't have to keep going back. Or if you go back, you can go back with more grace for the situation instead of having all of those huge emotions take you over with it. So it is super important. I always say dive in as far as you can dive at the time that you can mentally handle, because the deeper you dive, the higher you're going to rise afterwards.
Amen. I love that. And you also said something very beautiful, like healing can be a beautiful process. It really is. Like, it does have its hardness in between, but it is a beautiful process because you get to really learn and unlearn yourself and the person you want to be and the person you can become. And with that said, by the way, I feel like I need to bring you back so you can do a card reading for me.
Yeah.
How about that? We need to make that one happen. I need you to come. I feel like I need you and Soda to come live and we talk about spirituality and maybe get my cards read by both of you. That would be fun. But also,
I was into that. Oh my God, me and
I know.
Why aren't we talking every day?
I do not know. I'm shocked myself. Like you and Soda, like almost there aligning. But one last thing, if you can share, if you can put it in a minute, how did the name the Mama Jac? It's so catchy and I love it, and it's so you, the Mama Jac. Like it feels like the mother of all mothers who's just here to get us all right. How did that name come about?
So my name is Jackie, right? But everybody that's been super close to me in my life has called me Jac. So that came from my heart space, right? And Mama, like, it's just, I'm a mama. Like, I'm a mama.
You really are, like.
And it just so happened that after having the podcast and then going into my spirituality, that name, the Mama Jac, started to appear a little different, right? So it just kind of blossomed from the beginning. Like, it came from a name close to my heart, which is Jac. My close family calls me Jac. Now a lot of people call me Jac, but and then just being a mom. But now I think through my podcast, through the image that I'm bringing to the table when you meet me, that's why. I mean, I don't mean to be in my ego.
Oh no, it's definitely, I can even vouch for that, like straight up, like you're not in your own, and never apologize for being on your own. Like stand on your own shit, girl. You shine. Let it be known.
I worked hard to get where I'm at. And I think
Exactly.
my energy, you could feel that when you're in the room with me. And you know what? I'm proud of that. I really
As
am.
you should be. And I am proud of you for that. And well, and that's it for today for all those who joined in on live. Shout out to Alex. Thank you very much. For those who are going to watch the replay, please hit up Jack, check out our podcast, and connect with her. Thank you all for tuning in on Shit Happens where shit always happens. Ooh, ooh.